I think we're approaching the time. First of all, let me start with I would actually turn on my video, but unfortunately, Teams doesn't allow me to do so at this point in time. So I'll do the quick intro this time without the video, and then I'll hand it over to you. Okay, let us start off with the information that this call is being recorded, and with connecting to the call, you're consenting to being recorded. If afterwards, after the call, you want to rewatch the video or join us on one of our channels, join us on LinkedIn, subscribe to the YouTube channel or the Meetup channel, you can find the links to that here. I'll post them in a chat as well. And a little bit about ourselves, Augustine and me. Today I'm taking over the session. Our goal is, with these sessions, trying to connect the great speakers, thanks to you, with you, and give you some information and basically share best practices and knowledge amongst the community. If you want to add Augustine or me, you can find us on LinkedIn or Augustine on Twitter. So feel free to send us an invite and connect after the call. Upcoming sessions, pretty exciting one. The new format that we talked about in the last couple of sessions already. Sorry, I think somebody didn't mute themselves. Ongoing session is Data Jazz on Tuesdays. It's a new format with Augustine and Nicola, with a special guest. Chris Rapp is coming. That's once a month on Tuesdays, and it's this week, so you can connect to that as well. We have exciting upcoming sessions also for our weekly Power BI focused Stuttgart user group. So next week is going to be Scott Sewell using Power BI to explore Dataverse dynamics. Then, as mentioned, the Data Jazz. We have Alexander Arvidsson with the Untruthful Art, 5 Ways of Misrepresenting Data, and a week after, so fully scheduled for the next few weeks, Beyond Buttons, More Than Meets the Eye. And with that, once again, thanks to Pascal and Florian for presenting today this exciting session about adding a commenting Power App to Power BI. And I'd like to hand it over to you guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having us today. Maybe before we start, let me just share my screen with you. So just very briefly, that you know who the two of us are. So my name is Pascal. I'm running K-Team Solutions in Switzerland. We're mainly doing anything that is related to Power BI. And then today I'm joined by Florian. You might know him as PowerDoc 365. He's also running a company, and he's basically doing anything related to the Microsoft Power Platform. And because he is much better with Power Apps, and I'm more on the Power BI side, we joined forces. So today we are here in the name of BI Samurai, which is a platform or a community, let's say, that was set up last year, where we are currently 9 people that all run small BI companies around Europe, so we can join up and join forces and increase our overall know-how, and maybe also do bigger and more projects. So today's topic is how to add a Power App, commenting app, into a Power BI report. But before we're going to try to do this, show you how it's actually done, let me briefly tell you why I think this is actually important. Of course, the values within a report, which are shown in charts and graphs and tables and other visualizations, are the most important thing in a report. but I'm a strong believer that the numbers itself don't always, or maybe never, tell the full story. Sometimes you just simply need to have somebody with the understanding of what has happened in the business to sit down, look at the values, and actually write a comment that explains why the values are what they are, in a way that everybody from top management down to every single person in the company or looking at the report understands what happened. So today we're gonna try to build something like this from scratch. I'm gonna focus on the Power BI part, and once I'm ready to incorporate the app, I'm going to hand over to Florian, who will then build the PowerApp. And once this is done, it will get back to me, and I will integrate the results or the comments which were saved in the PowerApp back into the report. Florian and myself, we have discussed how we're going to do this session. But just that you know, this is the first time we're actually doing this live, so we'll probably need to improvise here and there, but let's just see how it goes. We've actually implemented this kind of solution in real life for some clients, so it's not the first time we're doing this. So hopefully this will go more or less according to plan. Before I start with a new report, let me just show you what you expect or what you should expect. So this, what we see on my screen now, is roughly the kind of report that that we want to have in the end, where we have, starting from top to bottom, we have some slicers, so the user can select what time frame, what period they want to see. Then we are having the brand new Zebra BI cards visual in here. So we have an overview of the most important KPIs of the business. Maybe I need to mention that the data set we're using is actually a German data set. So some of the words you see in the report are in German, but I'm going to try to translate whatever is important for you to know. So we have the main KPIs. Of course, when the user selects one of these KPIs, you know, the rest of the visuals filter to exactly this KPI. And then we also have a drill down or a split by legal entity or business users. So I can go in here and see where this result was actually coming from. And also we have, again, the development over time. So on one page with 3 visuals, I get quite a lot of information. But then again, what I mentioned before, maybe all these values don't tell the entire story. So this is why we will be focusing on this part here, the comment, where somebody that really knows why the result of March 19 is the way it is, looked at the values and wrote down in plain words why it was like that. And in order to do this, we're actually using, because we have formatted text, we're actually going to use a custom visual which can display and render HTML text. So we're going to be using the HTML text styler, which, by the way, has just been certified by Microsoft about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So right now, even after you have published this to the service, the report and the visual can be exported to PDF and PowerPoint. And on top of that, we're also gonna create comments which we can link to specific data points within the Zebra BI visuals. So right here, for example, we have a comment for March for a specific KPI. And when I hover over this little number bubble here, I see the comment. Again, the user can go and select a different KPI, and maybe then we have a different comment. So this should be the end goal. Now I'm going to jump over to the empty report. Well, the report which doesn't have any data yet, and try to build this from scratch. So first, And I'm gonna not spend too much time on all the details because really the focus and the star of the show today is the app. But let's start with getting some data. So I'm gonna connect to a SQL database. Sorry, that's already not what I wanted to do. We get data from here. This is our SQL database. I know that I need the facts table. Then I can also select related tables, which gives me the tables I probably need to have. Now I know that I don't need the period. I'm going to create my own calendar table, but also I need the workspace. Power BI now wants you to click on load. I would always recommend not to load directly, but first open up Power Query because there's always some cleaning up that needs to be done. In my specific case, I actually know that my data is clean, so I can also just say close and apply, which loads the tables into the data model. When I now hop over to the relationship view, we can see that my empty model is now filled with all these tables, and Power BI has automatically detected the relationships, and I have a very nice star schema data model with the facts table here in the center. What's missing is our calendar table, and I'm going to just also, to speed this up a little bit, create this calendar table in DAX, and then I have already prepared some code. This code should let me create the calendar table, but of course I get this error, which means that I forgot one step, because in my facts table, the period should actually be a date in order for the calendar auto function to work. So now we have our calendar table. I just need to link it to the facts table on the period ID column. And maybe a little tip from my side here, that because you see that I have quite a lot of relationships coming out of the facts table, and sometimes when I hover over relationship, I might not see which of the columns the one is that I use in the relationship. So this little option here, once I turn it on, all the columns which are used in a relationship are pinned to the top of the table. Okay. So I'm happy with my data model. And go back to the report and now start to create some measures. I would always recommend to have specific tables for measures, just so our model and our report is nice and clean and organized. So we have a brand new table called key measures, where I'm going to add my first measure for actuals. And then I'm going to add a calculate, and I'm not going to go into details because this is just very specific to the data I'm using. This is, by the way, a Lookup sample database where I need to filter on the data level ID, which is 1201. I think that should be my actuals, but this should be the values from the of our actuals measure, because we always want to have context. We want to compare the values to something. Let's also create a previous year measure. Previous year is calculate the actuals. And then we want to go back with the date add function. We can go back -1. So we have a very first two basic measures. I'm going to hide this column that I don't need. And then the measures table is also getting a different symbol and is moving to the top. And then we quickly go back to the demo report, the final one, where I explain how we did this with the KPIs. So you see that we have 6 main KPIs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actually. And they are all coming from a KPI table. So this KPI table here is defining the 5 main KPIs, and then we have one more, the general, which means that is a comment which is not related to a KPI, it's just our general comment. And Florian will be using exactly the same table also in the PowerApp. And this table actually, let me see if I can find the link. This table is a SharePoint list, a simple, basic SharePoint list. In a real life scenario, we would probably not use a SharePoint list, but maybe save this somewhere in a SQL database. But for now, for this demo, we thought that SharePoint is just a simple solution. So let me head over to SharePoint and import this additional table, which is called Demo KPIs. I don't need all the columns, so I'm going to go into Power Query, get rid of all the columns I don't need. I only need the one called KPI ID, I think, and probably title. That looks good. Let's change the data type. This is text and this is whole number. And then maybe before I load, let's also quickly look at this a bit more detail. We have different names for KPIs, and these names can be found again in the account table of my data model. Also, in a real life, we wouldn't use namings. We would actually work with IDs. And for this case, we made it simple. So let's now create a new measure for KPI. The KPI, we want to have the actuals as a basis, but we want to add a filter for the account level 2, and we want to filter on the selected KPI. Then the only thing missing is the previous year, and then I think we can actually start building the report. So that would be KPI previous year, which is the KPI. But let's go back again 1 year from the calendar table minus 1 year. Very good. We can now start building the report. So I'm going to add the Zebra BI cards visual, and I'm going to add the KPI value, the KPI previous year, and then I want to have this split by the actual KPI, get it into the group. I already have now a comparison, but I wanted to also see this over time. So let's also get the month into the category. And I think we have a problem with the sorting of the month. The month column is currently not sorted correctly yet. It's not alphabetical. So this is now fixed. Very good. Let me just quickly enter the license key here. And let's also add some slicers, one for the year. Let's put it into a drop down. That goes up here, copy it, and get the month in here. And what we can now do is, first, let's select a specific year and month. We actually don't want the month slicer to filter on this visual, so we edit interactions and say, you know, you month, you please don't filter the card visual. And now we can rearrange the cards in the way we want. Change one setting first. And then we can really make the most important KPIs maybe bigger, maybe change the look and feel of it, you know, whatever you like. Not going to spend too much time here, and maybe make this a little bit wider and also change a different chart type for this one here. Okay, so the main message, the main KPIs are already on the screen. So now I wanted to have this split by legal entity or business units. This time I'm going to use the tables visual. Again, add the KPI measure, the KPI previous year. And then also we want to have this by organizational structure. I think we need organization level 2, and maybe also add the drill down level. Currently the visual is still blank, but that's okay because we haven't added the KPI yet. And now we have all the KPIs from left to right, which is a bit too much. We actually here only want to show one specific KPI. So we're going to add a filter. I'm going to put a top N or a top 1 on the KPI. So now I only see the turnover, which means I can make this smaller and place it somewhere down here. Maybe also change the formatting of the relative variance to only table. So this fits nicely in here. Maybe also add a grand total. Okay, grand total, that's fine. Get rid of the title. And this is the visual we wanted. Let's collapse the entire field. This is my turnover by legal entity. And of course, if I want a different KPI, I just select the KPI card and the other visuals are filtered by that. Then we wanted something else. We want to analyze this over time. Exactly the same thing. We need the KPI title in the group, KPI ID, month. Make sure the month doesn't filter this visual. Add a top N filter. And again, I'm doing this rather quickly, but it shouldn't be the main focus of today. But I think it's still interesting to see how quickly a report like this can actually be built. And also I don't want to spend too much time because Florian will build the app in a minute. There's one more change I want to do because I have all these red bars, but I simply have them because I don't have any actuals yet. So I'm just going to turn off this option here. And now I have more or less the same thing or very similar to what I showed you in the beginning. My main KPIs, then the split by legal entities and the development over time. And what's missing is, of course, the comments. So I would like to hand over to Florian, who's going to build the PowerApp that then saves the data, which I will later on import to the data model as well.
Yes, perfect, Pascal. This was quite impressive. I think we will make it even more impressive just after we've built the app. So I'll start sharing my screen now. And we will really build this app from scratch. Let me know if you are seeing my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So we are here in the make.powerapps.com and we are really building this app from scratch. So it's Stuttgart Power Platform User Group. And then we have the comment app. And then it's just loading, creating 3 default screens, and then, only one. And then what we maybe should also do is directly save it, because creating the app and entering a name doesn't mean the app is saved yet. So we still have to save it, and therefore we have to go to the save pane and just click save. And only from now on, the auto saving is in place. So this is something, if you are first into a Power App, it can be a little bit tricky. It cost me quite some nerves. But since you know it now, you won't make this mistake. So what we're going to do now is we need to connect to data, because Power Apps is engagement with data. So we are using the same connection. Pascal already mentioned it. So we are connecting to the same SharePoint list Pascal is utilizing in his report. There's probably some typo in it. Oh, come on. So you see we have this site in place. We have the KPIs. We have the comments I'm already connecting to. And since we have the same data source, we really can make sure that the data or the KPIs and IDs we use are really the same. So what I'm going to do first is I just drop a gallery in here. I just use a blank one, enter just some label, just reduce the size a little bit. Don't need that much space. And then we will directly connect to the KPIs. And you directly see the gallery adapts. So it's kind of figuring out what data is in it, what are the columns, and then it makes some suggestions to the labels I've already in place. So you see I'm adding now a second label, and the PowerApps itself is trying to figure out, okay, there's KPI, there's another column KPI ID. So maybe since we already have KPI, let's now use KPI ID, which is quite sufficient. Let's make it a little bit bold. Let's maybe add just some kind of separator. Therefore, we just utilize a rectangle, which we put over the whole width of the gallery. Make the height just maybe 2. And then let's reduce the whole dimension of it a little bit. And still, what Pascal already mentioned is that these data is in German, so it's German KPIs. You can use any language, and what Pascal also mentioned is that at the moment we are using the naming, but of course you could also just use the KPI ID, which would also allow you to make it multilingual, because then you could have several language packages for the same KPI ID. But for the purpose of simplicity, we just keep it that way. Let's maybe drop another label just in it as kind of a header. Let's call it commenting app. You center it, increase the font size a little bit. Let's don't mess with the font style. Let's add some header background. So I don't know, maybe our CI is orange. Then I'm simply adding another rectangle, which kind of serves as an action pane. So we make it here a little bit. Let's make some light grayish background. And then we leave some space for some additional headers over the gallery. And what we then need is we want to enter comments. This is what this whole app is about. And therefore, obviously, there is a text input property or a text input element, which we can use. We want maybe to enter a multi-line comment. Let me just move all this a little bit to the left. And we want to have it multi-line. You see there's already some kind of default. We can move it out and just say, please enter comment as hint text. Let me just put you a little bit to the side, maybe if there are some questions that I don't miss. And then let's also do some little bit styling. There's a template fill where I can say if this item dot is selected, and it's just some kind of light gray, and otherwise it's parents fill. And then you see directly when I'm navigating through the gallery which KPI is just selected. Then we need also the same dimensions Pascal has in his report. So obviously we need some kind of year. Therefore, we just enter a simple dropdown. And I'm just a little bit lazy, so I'm using the sequence function, which gives me a static list of values. So sorry, it's sequence. Let's make it 4. Then I'm starting at 2019, and this should do the job. So you see, I've built easily some kind of year list, which I'm utilizing in my dropdown. And here also, of course, you can use some kind of calendar to get the distinct years and utilize also some SQL. So yeah, you could just adjust it to any corporate calendar you may have in place. But for the simplicity of this demo, we are just using the sequence function here. And of course, for the month, it's quite simple. It's just sequence 12. And in the app, we don't even care about creating a date out of it. So we could kind of patch together a date, but Power Query is so much powerful in doing so. So we are using this app just to patch the data kind of raw to the SharePoint list. And if we import them via the Power Query, we are then creating the date out of it. And what you still see, I can now create comments for several KPIs. But Pascal showed you also that we have kind of a general KPI or general commenting. And for the general comment, Pascal is utilizing the HTML styler. And this is why we would appreciate if the PowerApp could create some HTML. And what you might guess is that this form here, this text input, this was a fancy month. This does not create any HTML text at all. It just creates plain text, which is fine for the KPI cards, for the little icons, but it's not sufficient for the HTML styler. And therefore, PowerApps has a really nice control in place, and this is the rich text editor. So you see the rich text editor. I just place it over the text box. We will play with the visibility in just a second. And what this does is I can create some. This month was awesome. And then I can make it bold. I can do some additional formatting. I can change the color and all the nice things we may or may not need in our report to display. And so you just see that it's really HTML. Let me just rename it rich text editor comment. And then let me just place a label in here. I'm just doing this now for demoing purposes. But so we just see rich text editor dot comment, and then we say dot, and then we see kind of the child properties, and then we see kind of as first element there is HTML text. And I'm not really good at HTML text, but I'm aware to see that this is really HTML. So we have this kind of square brackets, and this we can also just patch into our SharePoint list, and then the HTML styler is able to catch it and transfer it back into properly rendered HTML. What we then need to do is just kind of playing around with the visibility, because we see here we have this KPI ID, and this KPI ID we will utilize for displaying the values. So we see here we have a visibility property, and there we can just say, let me just rename the gallery. It's gallery KPI. And then we, what's wrong with you? Sorry, it just took a second. And then I can just say gallery KPI.selected. So I can drill down with the dots into the child properties. So I have a selected, which gives me the whole line of the whole row of the SharePoint list, which contains the KPI and the KPI ID. So I can make another dot and just say KPI ID. And then I want the rich text editor only to be displayed if the KPI ID is equal to 0. And then, of course, let me just move to another one. So you see if I'm using any other KPI, it's not displayed. But just to be sure, I will just copy this property and put it into the visibility property of, of the text input, which I will also rename to txt comment. And then I will just do almost the same, but I will just say you have to be greater than 0. Now you see we can toggle between the two elements, and now we have to send this data to SharePoint. And there we will just add an icon. I think there is kind of a little paper plane somewhere. Yes, here it is. So this seems feasible. And then we will just utilize the patch function to just send the data towards the SharePoint list. It's called comments, if I'm not mistaken, demo comments, yes. And then we will create a new row, and therefore we have to use the defaults function, which is just creating or which is just fetching the structure of the row. This default tells the patch function which columns this this list contains of, and then we have to create the update function. So we will just create a record, and then we say title, which is either the title of the rich text editor or the title or the content of the text input. So we could also use this if function. I'm a little fan of the with function, which is kind of similar to the var function in Power BI. So we are able to create some kind of temporary variables, which we can then use in the same function. So I think you Power BI guys will be way more familiar with it. Let me just make it underscore comment, and then I'm saying if, and then the phrase is the same, kpi.selected.kpi ID is equal to 0. I'm using the HTML text, and otherwise I'm using this comment text, and then you see also this returns plain text. Then I can just close this record, put in a little bit, and then I can just use this comment. So I'm just moving this kind of condition up to the beginning, and then just using the plain result in my patch function. So the KPI is the gallery kpi.selected.kpi. I have to separate it by color by comma. Then it's also giving me some IntelliSense. And then it's KPI. So KPI is really the wording of the KPI. And as Pascal mentioned, you could just use it with the KPI ID. It's just a matter of your data model. And then it's also kpi.selected.kpi ID. And then we just need the year and the month. It's English labels. So therefore we have, let me just rename the dropdowns because otherwise I won't know anything. So this is my dropdown for the year. This is my dropdown for the month. And then let me just use this values. Dropdown year dot selected dot value, because the sequence function creates a single column table with the header value. So this is why we have to use the value. In here for the month, it's obviously the same. So it's dropdown month dot selected dot value. And then I think we're good to go. Are you missing any dimension, Pascal?
No, I think that looks good. You're saving the comment to the title.
Ah, yes, this is.
What do you exactly?
Yeah, yes. We have a comment column for this. Sorry.
No worries.
This is fine. So there are some incorrect things. I think the year and the month columns are numeric columns in SharePoint. So I have to use kind of some number columns. Let me just see. Let me just check the syntax. So it's comma, 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 comma.
I'm not sure the KPI ID has an underscore in the SharePoint list. Could that be it?
One of the reasons, but it has.
Okay.
Let me just. Seems more like a syntax error. Just formatted properly, so it might be easier to catch the error.
I just saw a hand up in the chat. Maybe somebody that knows what's wrong in the code.
Closing parentheses of width.
Doesn't seem so. I have the defaults. I'm closing here the patch and I'm closing the width right here. So this is not really the issue. Because the KPI ID, I'm just fetching it from the SharePoint list itself, so it should be in the right format anyway.
The KPI ID column in SharePoint.
Yes.
Can you just remove? Yeah,
Just
where is it?
Month, year, KPI.
So yeah, exactly, KPI ID. That's what I thought. It doesn't have an underscore in there.
But you see, it's kind of giving me the dynamic content from this.
Yeah, I see.
I can just try to. Okay. Yes, maybe it's wrong here.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, that
Oh,
there is
sorry.
probably.
Yes. Still fooling around. Just check all the other values. So it's year, it's month, it's comment. We just try to get rid of the comment. Just try to comment this out. I've narrowed down the issue. Maybe let me just look into another app. Okay, you are in.
Yeah, sorry, I tried to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's fine, it's fine.
But the actual app is built very differently. So for me at least, I cannot
Let me just
really help. But so for the year you had in the demo app, you don't actually use the value for the year.
But for the month,
just say the year selected dot value. Same for the month. The KPI ID.
maybe
I think the KPI ID. Can you go back to the KPI ID?
Yes, sure.
For the KPI ID, you're actually using the values function.
So only here. Okay, this is where I would have expected it the least.
Oh, I think we have somebody with the solution. Parentheses of. Oh no, hang on. The error is within the patch. You could comment lines out in the patch command. Yes, you can show the SharePoint columns. Parentheses of width.
So,
but as mentioned, we haven't practiced this, so
yes,
this happens. There's no problem.
Yes, but you see, even an empty patch would not work. Maybe let me just do it again.
Could you just show briefly the SharePoint lists, please?
Sure. It has a little bit more columns. Just move the relevance to the front. But we can look up the relevant things. So you see this is a number column. So this is also a numbered column, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And KPI ID is also a numbered column.
Yeah.
Could you show the structure of the columns of SharePoint?
Sorry?
The SharePoint columns architecture, the structure.
Yes, wait a second. Let me just try to patch at least one. Ugh. So then bracket, then. I know what the issue is. I have to give it any kind of title. Yes. Stupid me. Because title is the only required column of any SharePoint list. So of course it needs yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
So sorry for the delay, guys.
We have a lot of time left, no worries.
That's like that year. But it's better than some out-of-the-box tada solution.
I think looking at somebody troubleshoot an issue actually helps a lot to understand. It teaches me at least a lot to, see how you would troubleshoot something like this. At least in Power BI, we normally get an error message, which we can try to understand.
Yeah,
there I didn't really see much.
Yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes it just says, nope. Figure it out by yourself.
Select the value in year and month.
Sorry?
Dot selected dot value in year and month.
Yeah, I think it's selected dot value. Yeah.
Yes, I was just. And here it's KPI. Yes, Patch is happy. I'm happy.
Very good. Is there any way you could add, this is just, a question from my side. Is there any way you could add the row numbers in this formula editor?
You mean if you would like to patch a specific row?
No, sorry. I mean, just to get the row. So I could tell you, I think the error is on row 16.
No.
Okay.
No, this is, there's even no, what I would sometimes appreciate is some expand and collapse of the functions, like know from other,
that'd be nice.
tools. But there it's a little bit, yeah, it is as it is. Maybe let's just do some little bit concatenate. I could have also put this into the with function, so I wouldn't use it double. Same for this gallery KPI.selected. I'm using it 1, 2, 3 times now. But this is also some things for later. Just put it as the title. Usually I would also concatenate the date and the month, but for simplicity, let's just leave it as it is. And let's first try if it's work at all. So let me just see. I think Pascal cleared the list a little bit. So we'll just use, I think 2019, let's use April, so month 4. And then let's just patch some values to the SharePoint list. So and row Ergebnis is gross margin in English. Exceeded expectations. And let's just push it to the SharePoint list. And then let's hop over. Might take 1 or 2 seconds. Let me just refresh, and here we go. You see it on the bottom. There we see our title we just defined. We see our year, which we could have formatted differently. We see the month. We see the KPI again, and the KPI ID. And then also we see here gross margin exceeded expectations. We can do the same with some HTML text just to prove that we can catch it then again. That was a boost for the whole company. And then we could just do some highlighting, some formatting. I think Pascal likes to use these triangles up and down. I don't know how I can insert them quickly, so I'll just leave it. A lot, and then it's maybe I don't know whether it's helpful.
Maybe a little tip from myself, because I also know that a lot of people don't know. If you just press Windows and period, right?
Yes, but this would also work with plain text. So
all the emojis, okay.
Yes, and unfortunately, I'm on the virtual machine, and if I now press Windows dot,
don't do
opening.
it. That's okay.
But yeah, I get it. This. Oh no, this is not so good. And then just push it also to the SharePoint list. And usually I would also reset the editor after sending the values to SharePoint. And also what I'm not doing at the moment is checking if there are already values for the selected period and the selected KPI. So usually you would do some kind of lookup. We can maybe do it in a second. Let me just check it. And then you see also here directly, this is HTML text. And then, oh, this is the wrong app. And then we could just place any rectangle over it if there is already a value present. Then we could just lock it. Yeah, let's just use the visibility property. And then we just utilize the lookup function, because the lookup function returns the first value where the condition is valid for the data source. So here we can also say demo comments, and then as condition we have the month has to be equal to our selected month. So drop down selected.value. And then we have to use this kind of concatenation. Could also use the end function, but yeah, this saves me some lines. So I'm using this kind of end functionality. Of course, you could also do some OR condition with 2 pipes. And then here I'm definitely using the KPI ID. I have to use probably some quotes. Yes. And then it's our gallery.selected gallery KPI. This is why you should use proper naming and then also apply it. And then it returns just the whole record. And since the visible property is expecting a Boolean, we are just looking if this is blank. So we can just see if the lookup returns a value at all. And if it's returning a value, this means there's already a comment for the selected KPI and period in place. And then we don't want to be able to enter any values. So we want to say if the lookup is not blank, then we are returning values, and then we want to show the rectangle. And you see, I can also highlight it and see it's true. So, and if I'm now moving to preview mode and changing the period, you see it's going away. And usually you would just say, maybe just some kind of, hey, there's already in KPI entered, thank you, maybe move on to the next month or so. And this is kind of a really, really basic thing how you can create this commenting app. And then, of course, you are inside of PowerApps. You can add tons of additional functionalities. You can reset things. You can kind of play with the display mode. Because what we did also in the customer app, if I go to another month, that we also said, okay, we are only showing the sending icon if I really entered the new values into the text fields, because otherwise I don't need to send empty comments. And then also you can do some design thinking. You can apply the customer CI. You can apply some logos, some more icons, whatever makes your app more pleasant. And then you can kind of use this for entering comments. And what you can do with the comments and the app at all, I think this will Pascal show you in a minute. Maybe if you have questions towards the Power Apps, you may ask them now, so we don't have to switch back afterwards. But otherwise, of course, we can go back. Can we show which user added the comments? Yes, you can. This is automatically done by SharePoint because SharePoint is automatically logging who created. Created is the date and created by is the person. So you see instantly who created this. And this information can also be fetched by Power BI because the created by column is also what you retrieve if you kind of adapt, or if you load the data from the SharePoint list, you can also use this created by. In which date? Yeah, created by created. You see here it says 5 minutes ago, but if you are looking at the data from Power BI, it gives you a date time value. You just have to mind that SharePoint is always giving you UTC, so you have to do some time conversion to your local time zone. What if updated the same comments? Yeah, this is what I just said. In this demo, it's meant that the comments are static, so you have kind of a one-time chance to enter the comments. Of course, you could check if there is a comment and then load it and then enable the people to edit it and then move it back. Then you would still see who created it. But since we are on SharePoint, of course, SharePoint is logging almost everything. There's also kind of the same for modified. So you see if maybe the created by is different from the modified by. And what you also have, but you only have from inside of SharePoint, is kind of a versioning. So you would see here version 1.0. This is my initial entering, and if there would be other comments added or someone logs directly into the SharePoint and changes some things, it's all logged. So there can be no changes done without SharePoint noticing. Power BI time now. Pascal, the stage is yours again.
Yeah, I saw the comment. Excellent. So let's see. So we are back on the demo report I've built before. What's missing in a data model is these comments. So again, I'm going to go and load from the SharePoint list. And this time I'm going to be loading the demo comments. And now when I go to transform, you will also see what Florian just mentioned, that in here I get tons of columns. So somewhere in here I have the create date, the modified date, the user, all that kind of thing. Lots of information. For the report itself, I don't really need this. So what I would now do is I would get rid of all the columns that I don't need to have. But what we normally build on top of the actual comments in the report is a comment overview report, where the person responsible for the report can really see who did what change when, and they can really track and see, sort of like a logging. We logging all the changes in the commenting list. But for the report, I only need the, let's see, the year, the month, the KPI ID, and the actual comment, I guess. KPI ID, comment long. We didn't link this to organization. Normally we would of course also link the comment. So depending on the organization I've selected, the comment changes or to any of the dimensions in the report. But right now we only link it to time, to the date, and to the KPI. So I guess these are the comments we need. From the month and year, we need to create a date. So I can just merge these two and call it date and split it by a period. And that lets me change this column into date column. And then we also make sure everything has proper data type. So this KPI ID is numeric and the comment long is text. I'm not sure if I need the KPI ID or the KPI. No, I think that's the correct. That sounds correct. And also when we look at the comments now, we can see that these are the comments, the one here with the HTML tags, which should be on KPI 0 general, and the other ones are on any other of the KPIs. So that looks good. Let's load this into the data model. And then, of course, once this is loaded, we also need to make sure that our newly created comments table is linked to the calendar. So depending on what date the user has selected, the comments change. So now it's time to create some measures again. And I would probably create an additional table, call it text measures, or create folders within the key measures table, but I basically just want to make sure everything is nice and clean. So the text measures, we have two kinds. We have the HTML comment, which is a calculate. We want the selected value from the comments table, comment long, but only if the KPI ID is 0. And let's see if I now add the HTML text styler and add this comment. We don't see anything yet. Let's see if we did something wrong, because shouldn't we have a...
I entered the comment for April.
Okay, I thought there was one. Okay, but still.
Okay.
Need to figure out what is going on in here. Let's hide this column. So we want to show the comment. Oh, I think maybe. No, hang on. Let's look at what we actually have in this table. Yeah, that's it. Of course, we want to say we filtering on the wrong table. So we want to say if the KPI ID from the comments is 0. I think that would make sense. And this was the comment we already saw before. Now let me turn off the tooltip. We don't need this here. So we have also now a comment for April. Very good. So that's the comment for April. And then we also have still the comments for which are not rich text. So which one are not formatted. So let's create another measure for these. We call them, I don't know, KPI comments. And they are again the calculate with the selected value from the comment. This time we want to say only if the comment KPI equals to comment from the KPI ID from the demo KPI ID. And this measure I should be able to put into KPI comment into the comments field down here. And then depending on the KPI I've selected, exactly. So now I get a KPI, a comment for the result, and maybe I also have a comment for, I don't know, for the costs. I don't know where we have the comments, and there's also a comment in here. So that seems to work also dynamically, depending on the month I've selected. And now, I don't know if the app has been published yet.
Let me do it.
Yes, please. Because then we also need a way for the end user to actually enter the comment. So how does the end user actually get to the app.
Done.
We can, done, very good. So now if I refresh my Power Apps over here, I think this might take a minute, I don't know. It yet. But you know what, I'll just show this with the existing one. Because it's different ways, and what we can do is, of course, we can simply add the app within the report itself. So we have here, we have a hidden page where we actually have the app. It's not the one that Florian just built. This one also lets the user select the business unit or the legal entity. I think even on different levels, exactly for subunits. So that's one way of doing it. But of course, we could also just, because every app basically has a unique URL, we could also say, you know what, we add, and I'm just going to copy this here, but this time I'm going to say you are linking to not a page, but you are linking to a URL, this URL here. I'm not sure why this is giving, oh, it doesn't give an error. So when I open it from here, then it opens up in the browser. So these are basically, let's just say these are two of the three ways how we can access the app. Of course, we can also just go through apps.powerapps.com and select the app we want. Or, and that's another completely different way of building the app, is to have an integrated app from the beginning. But for our showcase, we just decided to go for the standalone app and just access it via a link or have it on a separate page. And what else do we need to say? I think that's what we planned to do. But I would really like to, you know, open up the round and see what people think, maybe to also hear if somebody's already adding comments to the report, or if there's any other questions we can answer, because really this was a very simple and down to the basics demo showcase. In real, we would probably do this, well, not probably, but we would do this a bit more complex and a bit different. So let's see, any comments from your side?
Just one comment from my side. It was a really great presentation, and thanks for that. What I really liked, and as you said, it's rather helpful if something is not working in a demo, and if you're solving it together. So that's I always like that better than what you said, just something out of the box and oops, there it is. So that was actually a good learning point.
Yeah, next time we know. But really, building something like this from scratch, there's always stuff that can go wrong. Especially what I find difficult is when you try to explain and type at the same time.
And this little adrenaline.
Yeah.
Pascal, there was a question if the PBIX file will be shared.
The PBIX file, we can. I cannot share the PBIX file. Not because I don't want to share it, because the data that's in there I cannot share. Even though this is demo data, I'm not allowed to share this demo database data. But I will find a solution to. We will build something similar with a demo data set, where we can also send the Excel files. But then this might take a few days, but I cannot share this specific file simply due to the data that's in here. But yes, we're happy to share. And yeah, then you can try to rebuild this. Yeah, sure, we'll do that.
Yeah, there was also the question if the Power BI, if the Power App can fetch data from the Power BI. Yes, this is basically the idea of this embedded Power Apps in Power BI. So I don't know, maybe Pascal, you can move to the comment app side and show this. Because there on the right you see the Power App data, so you can pass data from the Power App, from the Power BI to the Power App, and do some filtering based on this. It's not really intuitive if you are in the Power Apps editor to handle this data coming from the from Power BI, because it's what Power BI does. It's kind of creating some Cartesian product if you enter multiple values. So this is kind of a little bit annoying, but yes, it's possible, and this is basically the idea, but they are not handling it well yet.
Yeah, I think once this is working easier and properly, that will be the better way to do it, probably, because then I could really say, then my app would really interact with the report. So I could click on an element in the app and the actual report would filter by whatever I have selected. Currently, this is completely standalone. We're just using the same SharePoint lists and tables and all that, but technically there is nothing else in common. Then we were looking at the same sources, the same source tables. And I heard, and that's maybe also a question to Florian, is that when you create an integrated app, so I would say, now I create a new Power App. Where is it? No, this is Power Automate, sorry. Create a new Power App, and
again Power Automate.
Oh, sorry. Good, this one. And then I drag in the dimensions that I want for my Power App, and then I would say, okay, create new. And I think it used to be the case that once I create this with those 2 dimensions, or even if I have 10 or 15 or whatever, I cannot later on add more to it or change them. Somehow this is hard-coded within the app, but I don't know if this is still the case.
Honestly, I've never had this case, because I've usually tracked the Power Apps embedded to the canvas and then just create the app and put the values in later on. But yeah, I'll check it out.
I think it used to be a restriction, which also made it quite difficult to build an app like this, because of course now I know my data model, but tomorrow somebody might say, but okay, can we now also add comments for the, I don't know, the material or the product or the customer dimension? And if you don't have added this from the beginning, that basically means you can throw away your app and start from scratch. I don't know if it is still the case, but that's what I heard. It used to be a limitation.
Yeah, there were also some actions you could only do the first time you opened the app from Power BI, such as refresh Power BI integration. I haven't used it in a while, so I'm not sure if they got rid of these kind of bugs. But I think we will keep working on it for an integrated presentation soon. So maybe we'll figure it out.
We can try this next time, definitely. All right, anybody else? I would really like to hear if somebody's adding comments to their reports. But I also understand.
I think there's another question in the chat regarding the app ID.
Yeah, I guess it's referring to the Power App ID. I'm not really sure if you are able to kind of hand over a dynamic ID to the Power BI report, so the Power BI report knows, okay, now I'm linked to a development app. I'm not sure it's possible, but I think usually from the LM perspective, you should always link to the production Power App and not to the dev and then to the prod.
Oh, you mean that depending on some condition, I would here link to a different URL.
Yeah, I think this would be possible, but not for the integrated approach.
No, I don't think for the integrated one. Here, I really, when I added this app, so basically, let me get rid of this and then hopefully add PowerApps and not Power Automate. Here, you really choose the app, and I don't think that we can make this dynamic. But maybe what we could do, we could maybe have the commenting app. Right, and we could maybe have one with, you know, commenting app.
Yeah, but yeah.
Development, and then depending on, because here we can make this action conditional. So that's one thing. Maybe this could be a solution to jump from prod to dev.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can link to all the environments. To be honest, I'm just trying it out, because this would. Oh yes, okay, I can change the environments. That's great. But I think it's static. I'm not even sure where Power BI is storing the app ID to render the Power App. But yeah, if you could access it, it could be doable. But since I don't know where it's stored, it's hard to manipulate it if you don't know its location.
Yeah. All right. I guess, you know, from my point of view, if there's nothing else, we'll just hand back over to Christian, if he's still here.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about the video. I would usually turn it on, but
That's okay.
so today the technical side kind of crossed that out. Let me just quickly share my screen again so you can see the next sessions. Yeah, thanks a lot for this. It was really interesting, and I'm probably going to use that in one way or another within the next couple of projects that come up. So thanks for that. And if you want to rewatch the presentation and yeah, get some deeper insights, don't forget to subscribe to our Meetup channel on the YouTube channel, and we are looking forward to seeing most of you next week on Wednesday again, using Power BI to explore Dataverse Dynamics 365 by Scott. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.